This is what would happen if you ate the most poisonous animal in the world. This tiny fish is toxic enough to murk 30 people, and this poison is 1,200 times worse than cyanide. If you ate one first, you would feel a tingling around your mouth in the first 10 minutes. Then your mouth would become numb, meaning you would start drooling. Then you would become nauseous as your body desperately tries to get you to vomit the poison. The poison, called tetrodotoxin, is a neurotoxin that messes with the nerve signals of the muscles, which is why you would slowly become paralyzed. After 30 to 40 minutes, you wouldn't be able to talk, you would suffer from dizziness and one hell of a headache, but don't worry, it gets worse. Once the poison reaches your respiratory system, you would have trouble breathing as the toxin shuts you down from the inside. At this point, don't bother praying, because whoever you're praying to is going to see you very soon. The lack of air would put you to sleep, and since you wouldn't be able to breathe, there would be no iPhone alarm loud enough to wake you up. And all this can happen in a few hours. But fun fact, actually really what the fact, people actually eat the blowfish because it's considered a delicacy. It's actually safe to eat if you cut out the poisonous organs, but if the chef misses by just a little, it's curtains. The amount of poison it would take to put you in a newspaper could fit on that pinhead. Eating this murder guppy is Russian roulette, and every year somebody loses the gamble.
Spine-tingling photos taken just before tragedy, part 1. This is a picture of the crew of the Space Shuttle Challenger on their way to board. The shuttle broke apart 73 seconds into flight, killing all 7 crew members on board. This unsuspecting family captured the last moments of Ayano Takusamu's life. The 20-year-old student in the red sweater threw herself over the railings at the Niagara Falls to her death moments after this photo was taken. The 2 brothers in this picture are enjoying the effects of an electrical storm, but moments after this picture was taken, they were both struck by lightning. While they both survived, the brother on the left, whose name is Sean, suffered severe burns in the freak accident, and eventually they took his life. This man is posing with an animal he just shot and killed, but the man has no idea that a mountain lion is lurking behind him. The man was attacked and killed by the mountain lion, and this photo captures his final seconds of life. This is the disturbing truth behind a game that brainwashed and mind-controlled people. This game was called Polybius. It was released in 1981 at arcades in Portland, Oregon. Polybius became very popular. It was extremely addictive, and people would wait in very long lines just to play it. However, there is something very sinister about the game. People playing would experience very strange things, such as hearing the sound of a woman screaming, crying, and seeing demonic faces out of the corner of their eyes, and messages coming across the screen saying things like "kill yourself." After playing the game, people would have horrible nightmares, others experienced extreme nausea, diarrhea and vomiting, and others got headaches and blacked out. Also, they hallucinated and got vertigo. Some very unlucky people even committed suicide. Also, mysterious men in black suits would come and take the game's data and change all the settings, leading people to believe that it's a government experiment to brainwash people and control their minds. Disturbing photos of people's final moments, part 2. This is a selfie of 2 friends posted on Facebook. But later that night, the girl on the left strangled her friend with the belt that she is wearing in this photo. She claims that she has no memory of it because they were both drinking that night, and was only sentenced to 7 years in prison. This is Sydney Loof, and she posted a selfie to her Snapchat story right before she went on a date. But sadly, the man she went on the date with that night strangled her to death. The man who killed her said it was an accident, but there is no evidence that suggests anything but murder. This is Regina Walters, and this is moments before serial killer Robert Rhodes killed her. But before he killed her, he made her shave her head and get dressed up in a dress so he could take pictures of her. Evidence shows moments after this picture was taken, she was killed. Serial killer's last words, part 1. This is Jeffrey Dahmer, or also known as the Milwaukee Cannibal. He raped and killed 17 men in the 1980s and was beaten to death in prison by a fellow inmate. His final words while being beat to death was, "I don't care if I live or die, go ahead and kill me." This is Peter Curtin, or also known as the Vampire of Dusseldorf. He raped and killed and drank the blood of almost 60 people. He was then executed by the guillotine in 1931. And his final words were, "Tell me, after my head has been chopped off, will I still be able to hear for a moment the sound of my own blood gushing from the stump of my neck? That would be the pleasure to end all pleasures." This is John Wayne Gacy, or also known as the Killer Clown. He raped and murdered 33 men in a 6-year span and was executed by lethal injection in 1994. His final words were simply, "Kiss my ass." Serial killer's last words, part 2. This is Carl Panzram. He is an infamous serial killer and rapist and was hanged on September 5th, 1930. His final words were, "Hurry up, you old hag. I could have killed a dozen men while you're screwing around." This is Ted Bundy. He's a famous serial killer who raped and murdered an unknown number of women during the 1970s. Some people believe it to be over 100 women. He was executed by an electrical chair on January 4th, 1989, and his final words were, "I'd like to give my love to my family and friends. I'm sorry." This is Eileen Wuornos. She was a serial killer who killed 7 men between 1989 and 1990. She was executed by lethal injection on October 9th, 2002, and her final words were, "I'd just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus on June 6th. Like the movie, big mothership and all, I'll be back."
Bone-chilling animals you'll be glad to hear are extinct. Part 1. The Titanoboa was the largest snake to ever exist. They were over 50 feet long, 2,500 pounds, and killed their prey by squeezing them like a modern-day boa constrictor. The Gigantopithecus roamed Asia until about 100,000 years ago. They were over 10 feet tall, but luckily, they are vegetarians. However, this doesn't mean that they didn't use their massive strength against humans who tried to attack them. The Arthropleura lived 300 million years ago. They're very similar to modern-day centipedes or millipedes, however, they grew up to 9 feet tall and had little to no predators. The Mosasaurus were massive sea creatures that grew up to 50 feet long and had heads very similar to crocodiles. They had hundreds of rows of very sharp teeth, making them the most dangerous sea predators.
This is one of the most disturbing stories you'll ever hear. It will definitely give you nightmares. In July 2009, a gruesome scene unfolded in San Antonio, Texas that shook the police officers to their core. Audie Sanchez, a 33-year-old mother, committed an act so horrifying it's hard to believe. Claiming the devil made her do it, Sanchez brutally murdered her 3.5-week-old son, Scott Wesley Buchholz Sanchez. In a state of psychosis, she dismembered and mutilated her infant in an unspeakable manner, reportedly consuming parts of his body, including his brain. The authorities, responding to a frantic 911 call from the boy's aunt, were met with a sight of pure terror. Sanchez, amidst her delusions, was charged with capital murder but was found legally insane. Her past was filled with mental illness, untreated psychosis, and voices that haunted her, leading to this horrifying outcome. The case is a chilling reminder of the fine line between sanity and madness, where a mother's love was overshadowed by the darkest corners of the human mind. Subscribe for more chilling stories and the world's most unsettling mysteries.
Bone-chilling videos that will keep you up at night, part 2. People in this hotel were hearing screams coming from room 209. The hotel says that that room is empty, so they send somebody up to go check on it. And what happens will give your whole body chills. When he went into the room, he said that every single thing in the room was flipped over, and the camera picked up a ghost coming out of the room.
Chilling last photos of people before they went missing, part 1. Lars Mittank. Lars Mittank was a German backpacker travelling in Bulgaria in July 2014. While there, he supposedly took part in an altercation that resulted in a busted eardrum. His family and friends were worried after receiving cryptic texts from him saying he was being followed by 4 men. This image right here is from security camera footage which shows Lars sprinting out of the airport without his luggage. And the chilling last photo before he went missing is this one right here. After supposedly hopping a fence and running into the woods, Lars has not been seen since.
Here are some photos taken right before disaster, part 3. Here is the last photo ever taken of Paul Walker. It shows him climbing into the car that eventually crashed, taking him and the driver's lives back in 2013. Craziest part is, Paul Walker wasn't even the one driving. The guy driving was a professional race car driver. And the saddest part is that all this happened at a charity event that Paul Walker was hosting. RIP. This photo was taken right before the Homage bombing. The red car in this photograph right here contained a bomb that killed 29 people and injured some 220 others. Surprisingly, the man and child both survived, but the photographer didn't. This unsuspecting family snapped the last moments of Ayano's life. The 20-year-old student in the red threw herself over the railings outside of the Niagara Falls to her death. That's super sad.
This is the cursed song you should never listen to. Gloomy Sunday is an old song written by an Hungarian composer, Rezső Saris. He wrote it for his ex-girlfriend to try and get her back, but the next day she committed suicide and left a note that said Gloomy Sunday. As time went on, more and more people who listened to this song killed themselves. One man walked into a club and told the DJ to play Gloomy Sunday, and right when it got put on, the man immediately shot himself in the face. Also, an 82-year-old was playing Gloomy Sunday on his record player one day. Then he jumped 7 stories to his death from his apartment balcony. Even Rezzo, who wrote the song, killed himself also. The song was banned in England in the 1940s, but recently just got lifted in 2002. If you ever decide to listen to this song, please be very careful.
I'm gonna ruin your childhood, part 64. The original Wizard of Oz is actually considered a cursed movie because of all the horrific things that happened during filming, so let's go through a few of them. First up, the main character who played Dorothy, Judy Garland, was actually drugged and molested during filming. She was given adrenaline shots so she can stay up for sometimes more than 48 hours in a row. And there was also reports that she was molested and sexually harassed by both the Munchkin actors and studio executives. The actress that played the Wicked Witch actually got horrifically burned on set. During the scene when the Wicked Witch escapes Munchkinland in a plume of smoke, the pyrotechnics team accidentally set off the explosion a little too early, which caused the actress's broom, hat, and makeup to catch on fire. Medics had to use alcohol to remove her toxic makeup, which was extremely painful because of her burns. And the fake snow they used in the movie was made with asbestos, which causes cancer. Pretty cool. Here are some photos taken right before disaster, part 10. This is the last photo ever taken of the legendary rapper Mac Miller. New York photographer Christian Felber spent a whole day shooting photos of Mac while working on Vulture magazine's interview article on his recent new album, Swimming. Shortly after the article was posted, news broke that Mac had unexpectedly passed away at the age of 26. Rest in peace, you legend. This is the last photo ever taken of the Titanic before it sank. The Titanic sank on April 15, 1912 after colliding with an iceberg. There was more than 2,224 passengers and crew on board, but more than 1,500 didn't even survive. Crazy to think that this was the last photo ever taken of it. This is the Concorde crash. Moments after takeoff, one of the plane's engines caught on fire, causing the plane to crash into a nearby hotel. This tragedy killed over 113 people. That's a crazy photo. Pretty sad.
Creepy facts that will give 99% of you chills, part 4. At least once a day, your immune system destroys a cell that would have become cancer if it lived. This is a very scary true fact. The feeling you get in your stomach when you are on a roller coaster is your organs floating around inside of you. So next time you say you enjoy that feeling, you should definitely rethink it. 15% of the matter you breathe in outside is dead human skin. So every time you go outside, you are breathing in some stranger's dead skin. Wasps can remember people's faces. So if you ever get a wasp mad and you run away thinking you're safe, the wasp will remember your face and attack you next time he sees you. As recently as the 1980s, many researchers and doctors believed that babies couldn't feel pain, so they operated on them without any anesthesia. Spine-tingling photos taken just before tragedy, part 3. This junior ice hockey team from Canada, the Humboldt Broncos, were on their way to a game when their bus got hit by a truck going 62 miles an hour. The crash killed 16 people, 14 of them were coaches and players. This is the last photo ever taken of the team. This man was enjoying surfing at the beach one day, but he could have never imagined what would happen to him. When the man was hitting this wave, he did not notice the shark in front of him. The man then fell off his surfboard, and the shark then attacked and killed the man. Robert Overraker was trying to raise money for the homeless, so he jet skied off to Niagara Falls as a stunt to raise money. But sadly, Robert's parachute failed to open, and he then fell to his death. This man, Maxoon Khan, jumped into a tiger's cage at a zoo. As the tiger stared at Khan, bystanders started throwing rocks and garbage at the tiger, which only upset the tiger, causing it to attack Khan. Khan did not survive the injuries, and he later died. Creepy photos that will give 99% of you chills, part 8. This is Annalise Michel. She underwent a total of 67 Catholic exorcism sessions, all within 10 months, and died of dehydration and malnutrition. In this photo, Annalise was possessed and was undergoing an exorcism. This group of friends took this group photo seconds before a bomb went off from inside the gold car in the background. None of the 4 friends survived, and their last photo together was pure happiness. This is a picture of Jesse McBain and his girlfriend Patricia Main on Valentine's Day in 1971, and this was the last time they were ever seen alive. Days after they went missing, a man found both of their bodies in the woods with their hands tied behind their backs and they had been tortured to death side by side. This is Joseph Goebbels, one of Hitler's most devout followers and closest friend. This photo captures the exact moment that he was told that his photographer was Jewish. The look on his face is truly chilling. This is the scariest story about the new house. One day, a father and son were looking for a new house because their old house was destroyed in a flood. They searched for a couple days until they found the perfect one. It was a very nice house in a nice neighborhood. Everything was perfect for the first week when they moved in, but then one day, the father noticed his son looking very pale. The father then asked his son what was wrong. His son then said, "Dad, do you believe in ghosts?" "Of course not," said the father. "Ghosts do not exist." "But Dad," the son replied, "our maid said that there was a ghost in our house." "Son, pack your bags, we're leaving," said the father. The son then said, "Why, Dad?" The father replied, "We don't have a maid." These are photos taken before it all went wrong, part 5. Up first is a picture of a couple that looks pretty happy. But this picture is super sinister. The girl on the left's name is Jodi Aries, and the man on the right is her boyfriend, Travis Alexander. Jodi stabbed him 27 times, and then slit his throat ear to ear. Next up is a picture of Biggie Smalls enjoying a night out in Los Angeles. Right after this photo was taken, Biggie went outside, got into his car, and was then shot dead at a red light. Finally is a picture of Regina K. Walters. A serial killer by the name of Robert Rhodes took this photo of the 14-year-old girl before he brutally murdered her. These are the most scariest phone numbers to call, part 1. The first number is 090-4444-4444. If you call this number, you will hear strange and weird creepy noises. They say that anyone who calls this number will die within a week in some sort of accident. The next number is 0888-888-888. This phone number is a very cursed number. They say anyone who has this number or tries to contact it will die a gruesome and horrible death. The first man who had this number got cancer and later died. The second man that had this number was walking down the street and then got shot in the head. Then nobody else wanted to have the number, so the phone company suspended this number. But people who tried to call this number met a very gruesome end. If you call this number, you will hear a pre-recorded message say, "outside network coverage," or you will just hear an eerie silence, which means something bad will happen to you in the upcoming days.
These are the sounds of hell. In the year 1970, scientists from the Soviet Union wanted to drill down into our Earth's surface as far as possible to learn more about our Earth's crust. And they dug this hole for almost 2 decades, and they managed to dig down more than 7.5 miles. They had to stop digging when they hit a cavern, but this is when things got weird. The scientists then were curious of what it sounded like down there, so they dropped a heat-tolerant microphone down the hole. 7.5 miles underneath the Earth, the temperatures reached 2,000 degrees, and they only got about 17 seconds of audio before the microphone melted. But what they heard were the sounds of hell.
They executed this serial killer the same way he killed over 100 boys. This is Javed Iqbal, and from 1998 to 1999, he murdered and raped over 100 boys from the ages of 6 to 16. He would rape his victims and then strangle them to death with an iron chain, and then cut their body into 100 small pieces, and then put all the small pieces in acid. He did this to all 100 boys that he murdered. Javed Iqbal was then sentenced to death by being strangled by an iron chain, then for his corpse to be cut up into 100 small pieces, and then throw his body in acid in front of all the victims' parents. They killed him the same way he killed over 100 young boys. Scary movie diseases that will wipe out humanity, part 1. This is the Crippen virus from the movie I Am Legend. The Crippen virus was genetically engineered from the measles virus as a cure for cancer. At first it appeared to be effective with no side effects, but over time the virus began to mutate and cause rabies-like symptoms in its host. The Crippen virus then had a major global outbreak with a 90% kill rate, and it went airborne, killing 5.4 billion people. Of the 600 million people who did not die from the virus, 12 million were immune to it, and the other 588 million devolved into dark seekers. The Crippen virus drastically changes its host behavior, causing bloodlust and primal aggression. It also causes albinism, total hair loss. Also, it causes an extreme intolerance to ultraviolet, which causes ultraviolet radiation, such as sunlight, to burn the infected people's skin. This virus is extremely dangerous, and we should pray that this never spreads on Earth.
This is what happens when one of the deadliest animals in the world gets a taste for humans. So back in 1898, the British started building a railroad bridge over the Savo River in Kenya, and they employed several mostly Indian workers over an 8-mile area. But what they didn't realize was they had accidentally wandered right into the territory of one of the top predators on the planet. Because over the next 9 months, 2 maneless male lions would stalk the workers, and when they would return to the campsite after a long day, the lions would sneak in and literally drag the workers out and maul them into a statistic, and eat them. And at first, only 1 lion at a time would enter the campsite. But eventually, the 2 male lions started catching bodies together as a team. The crew tried to break this kill streak by putting up a thorn fence. Told them a motivated Simba can jump 11 feet in the air, so the lions easily cleared it. In only 3 months, 29 workers had been put in an ashtray by the hungry lions, to the point where the other workers started to panic and leave the construction site. So the head officials responded by bringing in hunters to evict the lions from the area, and you know where it goes from here. Cowie's looking down at him, he knows how this movie ends. Late one night, the lions allegedly broke into the hunter's cabin where they mauled one hunter, dragged him outside, and that was the night his name got taken off the census. Eventually, the 2 lions were shot and put out of commission, and it took 9 rifle shots to drop the second one. Eventually, the railroad workers finished the bridge, but it cost over 130 men and 2 lions to do it. And the number of men lost was an estimate, because apparently lions don't leave a lot of their victims behind. And with all the bodies the lions caught, the workers might have built the track, but the lions ran the train.
This is definitely one of the most bizarre warning notes you ever receive, so you might want to hear this. On December 2014, a journalism student named Amy Jones was staying in an Edinburgh hotel when she discovered the creepy note that said, quote, "Don't open the locked door. Don't trust its whispers. Leave. Just leave." End quote. Instead of being freaked out, Jones took a picture of the note and uploaded to Twitter, with many of her followers replying to her tweet requesting to open the locked door. But instead, she then proceeded to go to sleep with the door in question facing her from the opposite end of the room. The next Sunday morning, Amy made it out of the hotel safely and posted a message saying, quote, "To anyone asking if I'm still alive, yes, I'm fine. I slept well, and woke a couple of times for a sip of juice. There were no whispers." End quote.
These are foods from around the world that can kill you. Up first is pufferfish. This food is actually banned in the United States, and for a good reason. It's one of the most poisonous foods in the whole world. Unless this thing is cooked exactly right, it is 1,200 times more deadly than cyanide. Next up is ackee fruit, which is a Jamaican fruit. But when you eat this fruit when it's not ripe, it has very toxic levels and can cause you to vomit, have a seizure, or even die. Finally is casu marzu cheese. Maggots actually live in this cheese, who decompose in it and have kids. This might be the most disgusting food ever.
Extinct animals in your state, let's go. New York, giant sea scorpion. These things were aggressive, now we know where New Yorkers get their attitude from. Florida, Basilosaurus. If you would've stepped in the water, you would've got slaughtered. How's that for a vacation in Florida? California, Californiasaurus. These sea murderers dominated the ocean. They were basically swordfish, dolphins, and whales all in one. Talk about a triple threat. New Jersey, Dinosuchus. These prehistoric predators would gobble up a poor dinosaur as if it were a chore. Texas, y'all had Sauroposeidon. Everything's bigger in Texas, right? Damn, look at that daddy longneck. God, imagine how many creatures got stepped on by this bad boy. Alaska, woolly mammoth. Y'all would have to watch out for the furry tusk behemoth named Manny. Or maybe he'd be your best friend. Who knows?
This is the scary truth about Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson might be one of the luckiest people alive. He actually escaped death the morning of 9/11 and could have been one of the almost 3,000 people who died. On September 11th, 2001, Michael Jackson had an appointment at the Twin Towers, but Michael Jackson actually overslept and missed his appointment because he was up late talking on the phone with his mom. And if he did not oversleep, he would have died on the morning of 9/11. So if this teaches you one thing, it's to always pick up the phone when your mom is calling. These are the strangest ways that people have ever died, part 3. In December of 2013, a man by the name of Denver Lee St. Clair came home and got into a fight with his son. One thing led to another, and his son then gave him a wedgie. He then pulled his underwear up over his head and covered his face, suffocating him to death, as the waistband became wrapped around his throat. Next up, in 1983, a woman named Maria was walking down the street in Argentina when suddenly a dog jumped out of a 13th story window. The dog then landed on Maria, killing them both. In 1982, a man named David Grunman thought it would be a good idea to go out in the desert and shoot some cactus. But right when he shot the cactus, it fell over and landed on him, crushing him and stabbing him to death.
Here are some events that will happen by the year 2050. The sad truth is, by the year 2050, half of the world's population will not have access to clean drinking water. Half of the Amazon rainforest will be deforested, leaving many animals without any shelter at all. In 2025, SpaceX is sending their first cargo ship to Mars, and if all goes well, they are sending their first humans to Mars by the year 2050. So who knows, maybe by 2050 we will have the first civilization on Mars. Animals are getting more dangerous and more powerful every year. Animals are evolving every day, becoming more of a threat to society. I'm not talking about your regular house pet, I'm talking about wild animals. For instance, in 2020, we found the first flying spider, your worst nightmare. You thought the coronavirus was bad? Well, by 2050, there could be more deadly viruses affecting the world than ever before. You better keep that face mask. The population will be 9.6 billion.
10 horrible ways to become a hashtag in Africa. Before I start, when I say Africa, I mean the actual wilderness. I'm not saying the entire continent's a fucking Serengeti. Some people legitimately got mad at me. Like I'm out here friendly firing my own family tree. Anyway, hyenas and wild dogs, since they'll eat you alive and start by pulling out your intestines while you're still alive enough to have a pulse but too close to death to do anything about it. Sleeping sickness, because one of the symptoms is you become an insomniac that can't fall asleep no matter how hard you try. And without treatment, the final symptom is you go to sleep permanently. African bees, since they're more aggressive, sting 10 times more than their European cousins, and a motivated hive will chase you for half a mile. Imagine running for half a mile and still being angry. Now that's some shit. Chimpanzees, because they'll rip out your face, throat, and balls, and quite possibly in that order. Porcupines, because those quills will swell and expand once they're inside you, pause, and they'll keep pushing into your skin until they eventually hit an artery or an internal organ. It's a slow fade, the worst kind. Next is a lion that got faded by a porcupine, because lions that have been crippled are statistically more likely to see humans as an easy lick, which is terrifying and low-key disrespectful, since it takes a career-ending injury for us to be worth the effort. Cape buffalo, since they're part of the special class of animals that will seek revenge. Since they can travel in herds of hundreds, they've been known to circle their victims and leave them no option other than early life retirement. They're nicknamed Black Death because the same homicide cow that can turn Mufasa into a frisbee erase about 200 lives a year. The Black Mamba, because one bite can flatline you in an hour, but you'll probably be paralyzed and unable to talk in the first 20 minutes. Meaning if you get bitten, Google says you're 40 minutes away from a hospital, text your parents goodbye and make peace with your God. Crocodiles have the strongest recorded bite force of any animal. So if one bites and death rolls you, your best option is to negotiate an arm or a leg. Also, the more you struggle, the more likely other crocs will pull up and get involved. Also, they're one of the few animals that'll attack people often enough to be classified as man-eaters. And of course, hippos, because your mere existence is an insult to them. They'll Bundy animals just for being alive in the wrong direction. This man was swallowed by a land whale 3 times and took 38 bite wounds. When he finally escaped, that day he and his friends found out what his lungs looked like, because the hippo basically put a window through his chest. Nah, cause y'all seem to think I know everything like I'm a walking encyclopedia, but if I'm being honest here, I know what the that was supposed to be like. I had to go in the comments for this. And apparently that's not a deformity, that's actually what they're supposed to look like. It's a Damascus goat. It originated in Middle East countries and is primarily used for meat and milk. Now I'm not gonna sit here and say God makes mistakes, but that skull makes me think his draft and post buttons are way too close to each other. Also, a Damascus named God won a prize for most beautiful goat in a contest in 2008, proving that some of y'all will lie unprovoked for no fucking reason. Y'all can call him beautiful, but tell me this goat didn't crawl straight out the Goonies. They actually look somewhat normal as babies, but then I guess puberty hits them like Hiroshima. It's honestly the pug of goats, and I truly mean that. And I read some comments on the internet saying, oh, he just wants love. I rebuke that, he wants my life essence. We played God with goats, and now we got Barnyard and Dark Souls, and I do not like it. And I could have sworn Satan took the form of a goat. Actually, this makes a lot of sense now. You know y'all don't gotta tag me in every animal video, cause like, what do you expect me to say? Like, his existence looks like pain. And for y'all that are gonna sit there and tell me that he actually looks cute, I pay way too much for context for y'all to lie about what's in front of my face. Crazy thing is, this is the second most disturbing goat video I've ever seen.
Hello!
Absolutely not.
This is a scary story about the Pale Hands. A group of teenagers went on a trip to the seaside. They found a cliff that overlooked the water, and they all sat down and had a picnic. Afterwards, some of the teenagers decided to jump off the cliff into the water. One girl brought her camera and was taking pictures of her friends as they jumped. One of the boys jumped off the cliff into the sea and made a ginormous splash. His friends clapped and cheered, but when they looked over the cliff, they couldn't see him. The boy never came up from the water, and his devastated friends had to call the police. A team of rescue workers eventually dragged the boy's body out of the sea. He drowned and he was dead. A week later at his funeral, the dead boy's friends were looking through the photos they took that day. But when they came to one picture in particular, they stopped and stared in horror. It was a picture of the drowned boy, taken when he was jumping off the cliff. Coming out of the water in the photo were countless white pale hands, clutching the boy tightly and dragging him into the sea and killing him.
So some people wanted me to talk about the whole shark tragedy in Egypt. If you didn't know, a man was mauled to death by a shark in an Egyptian resort, Hurghada. And it turns out it was a tiger shark that did it. The thing with tiger sharks is they don't walk. They're like garbage disposals with gills, and they'll eat, and I really do mean this, literally anything they can swallow. Like, we found things like license plates, tires, bags of money, the chicken coops, even a full suit of armor in a tiger shark's stomach. They truly do not care. Tiger sharks may not actively try to murk people, but they also don't discriminate, and they'll usually do the whole exploratory bite thing before they realize that the object isn't something they normally eat. The problem is, tiger sharks are so big that sometimes one bite is really all it takes. Even if it isn't, if you panic and start thrashing around, which like 99% of people would do because, you know, a shark just bit you, all you're doing is triggering the prey response in a shark, and it's pretty much game over at that point. Especially since they're one of the few sharks that will 100% attack you unprovoked. So even though it is really rare, and I'm not like just saying that to minimize it, the reason it makes international news is because when it does happen, it's bad. Also, they ended up catching the shark, dragging it to shore, and beating it to death. And apparently they're gonna mummify the shark and put it in a museum, so yeah, that's a thing.
Most scariest people to ever live, part 1. This is Jack the Ripper. He was a serial killer in England, and between August and November in 1888, he murdered at least 5 women. All the victims were prostitutes, and all were killed on the street. In each instance, the victim's throat was cut, and the body was mutilated, indicating that the murderer had some knowledge of human anatomy. Jack the Ripper used to send taunting notes to the police and mailed the police parts of his victims, like a kidney or a finger. Police and civilians tried everything they can to catch Jack the Ripper, but they never succeeded. The way Jack the Ripper mutilated his victims' bodies, people were convinced it was a doctor doing the killing. Jack the Ripper always killed in the same area and left behind no evidence. Jack the Ripper is one of the most gruesome serial killers in history, and all his murder cases still remain a mystery today. Nobody knows who Jack the Ripper ever was, and I don't think anybody ever will. Scary movies that we all saw as kids that terrified us, part 3. This is the movie The Nightmare Before Christmas. It is about a skeleton man named Jack Skeleton, who is the leader of Halloween Town, and the citizens call him the Pumpkin King. One day when he was walking in the woods, he came across 6 trees with 6 different holidays on it, and he went into the Christmas one. Upon entering the tree, Jack arrives in a complete Christmas town. He then falls in love with the Christmas holiday and goes back to Halloween Town, telling all of his people that it's not fair for only Christmas Town to celebrate Christmas. So Jack tells everybody that they are celebrating Christmas this year. And this causes a lot of problems. This movie is not extremely scary, but what's very scary about it is the different characters in the movie. They are extremely creepy and scary, and looking at these characters as a kid was extremely terrifying. This is the terrible story about Alyssa Lamb. Alyssa Lamb was a 21-year-old college student. In January of 2013, she went on a trip around the US on her own. She started in San Diego and then went to Los Angeles. When she arrived in Los Angeles, she went to the old Cecil Hotel. She called her parents every day and then suddenly just stopped. Her parents got really worried and then called the cops, who started investigating. The hotel staff said they saw her alive that day, but there was no trace of her. They then went over the security camera and saw her in the elevator panicking, going in and out, and pressing all the buttons and talking to herself. It seemed like she was running or hiding from somebody or something. The weirdest part though was that the elevator doors did not close until she left the elevator. After several weeks, they checked the water tank on the roof and found her dead body. Nobody knows how she got in the tank, cause it was 13 feet high. People claim she was playing the elevator game and did the steps wrong and got severely punished for it. These are kids' toys that got banned, part 1. Up first is Aquadots. This toy allows you to arrange small beads together with water, and you can make your own design. Sounds fun, right? But the problem with this toy was the coating actually released the drug GHB, aka the date rape drug. 3 kids went into a coma after swallowing the toxic pieces. They then completely recalled Aquadots. Next up is something I know we all remember. the Easy Bake Oven. But how could this be dangerous and banned? Well, several kids burned their fingers after getting it caught in the miniature appliance. One girl even had to get her whole finger amputated. This is actually insane, and who knew a harmless toy could cause so much pain?
But it was too little too late, as just days after the incident, Twitch suspended his account and he was eventually arrested as well.
The man who disappeared mid-flight. This could be FBI's most wanted man in the world, D.B. Booker. In 1971, D.B. Booker bought a one-way plane ticket from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington. There was no evidence or pictures of this man, just a sketch of what people said he looked like on his plane. While in the middle of the flight, D.B. handed a note to a flight attendant saying he had a bomb in his briefcase. Booker then asked for $200,000 and 4 parachutes. The worried flight attendant told the pilot, and D.B. received everything he wanted. When the plane landed in Seattle, Washington, D.B. waited for all the passengers to get off the plane before demanding the pilot to take him to New Mexico City or else he will kill him. In mid-flight, D.B. jumped out of the back of the plane with his $200,000 in cash and 4 parachutes. It was said he landed in a forested area in the U.S. The FBI looked for this man for countless days and hours. He was never to be found.
This is the scary story about the diet pills. There was a middle-aged overweight woman who wanted to lose weight. One day she was looking through a magazine when she saw an ad for diet pills. It said guaranteed weight loss in just 2 weeks. The woman then ordered a month's supply. A few days later, she received the pills. She then popped the diet pill into her mouth and then swallowed it. Days later, she noticed her appetite was completely gone. As more days passed, she began to lose more weight, but she started having very sharp pains in her stomach. The pain became so intense, she had to go to the hospital. A doctor examined her and became very alarmed after seeing her x-ray. He asked her if she ate anything strange recently. The woman said she hasn't eaten anything besides her diet pills. The doctor then asked to see the bottle of diet pills. He then broke a pill open and brought it to a lab to examine it. When he returned, he looked at the woman very worried and said, "Those diet pills contain tapeworm eggs, and they have been eating your stomach." This is the creepy story about the man at the window. One cold night in December, a girl invited a group of her friends over to her apartment for a party. There were 5 boys and 6 girls. They were all having fun until they heard loud banging coming from the window. The friends turned around and saw a figure of a man standing at the window. They couldn't make him out because frost covered the window. The man continued to bang, and one of the boys shut off the music and shouted, "What do you want?" Then they heard the man yell, "Keep it down in there, don't you know what time it is?" The boys and girls all apologized, saying, "Sorry, we'll be quiet." They watched the shadowy figure move on and disappear. Then one of the boys put back on the music on full blast and said, "He's not the boss of me." Everybody started to laugh, except the girl who owned the apartment. She was deathly pale and tears were rolling down her face. Everyone kept saying, "Why are you crying? What's wrong? Are you afraid he's gonna call the cops?" She then said, "It's not that. You guys don't realize? That man was at the apartment window, but I live on the 4th floor." This is the scary story about the mirror in the closet. There was a girl who had a bedroom closet. On the inside of the closet door, there was a mirror. The girl loved to freak herself out, and sometimes she would open the closet door at night and just stare at her reflection in the mirror. But one night when she did this, she was surprised to see an interesting effect. Due to the interplay of light and shadow, when she looked in the mirror, it seemed like her reflection had black, empty eyes and a huge gaping mouth. After admiring the optical illusion for a moment, the girl went to the bathroom. But when she turned on the bathroom light, she remembered something that made her lock herself inside the bathroom. Then she started to scream loud enough to wake her parents. She remembered that earlier that day, her father had removed the mirror from her closet door. This is a scary story about the black doll. There was a single mother who lived with her newborn baby. She was unable to work, and she had no living relatives or friends to help her, so she was having a very rough time. One day the mother went grocery shopping and left her baby home alone. On her way home, she got into a car accident and was killed on impact. She wasn't carrying any identification on her, so the police couldn't figure out who she was. Nobody came to claim her body, so she was buried in an unmarked grave. She had no living relatives, so that means nobody noticed her disappearance. 2 months later, the dead mother's landlord noticed she has not been paying rent. He then went to her house, but nobody answered. He then used his spare key to get inside. When he got inside, everything of hers was still there. He walked in her bedroom and found a black doll laying in the middle of the floor. He then heard a rustling noise coming from the doll. He went to go pick it up, but when he touched it, hundreds of cockroaches ran away, and all that was left was the skeleton of a baby.